It's that time. Lock and load. The Michael Berry Show is on the air.
Barack Obama finally spoke yesterday on the VA issue.
But we have to let the investigators do their job and get to the bottom of what happened. Our veterans deserve to know the facts. Their families deserve to know the facts. Once we know the facts, I assure you, if there is misconduct, it will be punished.
If there is misconduct. There are already widespread cases of misconduct. Nobody has denied it. If there is misconduct. He doesn't say if there is racism, does he? He doesn't say if people don't like gay people. He doesn't say any of that. If the Cambridge police mistreated his buddy Skip Gates, turned out they didn't. If BP made a mistake in the Gulf. If. No. See, if Al Sharpton lied and caused people great grief, no. The if is only when it's a group that he doesn't care for. And Barack Hussein Obama does not like veterans. I will remind you that, what's that, Anise Porker-looking woman from Arizona that was his Homeland Security director? What was her name? The woman from Arizona that was his Homeland Security, whatever her name was, Donna. Oh, not Shalala. What was her name? Anyway, Napolitano. What's that? Janet Napolitano. One of the first things that Jimmy Napolitano. One of the first things that she did was an internal memo that said the number one Homeland Security threat facing the country was veterans coming home from war zones who were pro-life and anti-big government who owned guns. That's how these people think. That's who we're dealing with. Sergeant Mark from Corpus Christi. Go ahead, sir.
How you doing, Mike Berry?
Great.
Appreciate what you do, and a long-time listener, and I'd like to...
How'd you find the show, sir?
Well, I've been driving back and forth. I work at Corpus Christi Army Depot. I put helicopters together and live in Victoria, so I got a long drive on the way home for this government job like you talked about. And I know that sometimes you like to play devil's advocate, so I'd like to present to you something to think about, okay?
Okay.
The system itself is inundated with folks that they're going through what's called the rating process, getting rated, like the gentleman before talked about with his jumping out of helicopters being in Bosnia and whatnot. When these soldiers come back, they've got to approach the system first and get rated, which means the government will not just take your word for it that you're missing a leg or missing a limb or have PTSD. You've got to go talk to two, one medical and one on the one civilian and one on the inside. So the VA, you have to talk to a VA psychiatrist, and you also have to approach a civilian psychiatrist. And those two decisions, that's if it's psychological and not medical. The medical, you also have to get rated by a civilian doctor. Those two decisions go to the regional in Houston down here, the most widely, highly backed up one of all the regions.
Yep, that's what I've been told.
Goes to Houston,
Mark,
and then they get rated.
We sent producer Kenny over to the VA in Houston yesterday, and he spent about 5 hours over there, and he talked to a lot of veterans. And he talked to veterans who've been to Walter Reed. They've been all over the country, and they said that the facility in Houston is the best in America, and that is a widely known fact.
I agree that the medical facility there is. The rating, the regional rating, the folks who make the decisions on the soldiers who are applying to get disability in the first place. That system is what is backed up, and that system is what causes folks to die because they're waiting on their decisions.
What is the decision? I'm sorry, Mark.
The decision, Michael, is originally when the Marines. I'm a Marine myself, so I'm just going to say when the Marines come back and they say, "Hey, I've got a bad shoulder, I've got a bad knee," you have to submit your package to not the Houston Medical Center, the Houston rating facility, where they rate you and decide what your disability will be for the rest of your life. It's basically how much pension or how much money they're going to pay you because you have a broken limb or you're a prosthetic or whatever. And that's what's taking, in my opinion, sir, the most time is getting initially rated.
Did you go through that process?
Yes, I did, sir.
How long did it take you from start until your rating?
I put in my package to be rated in 2012, and I am only just today, believe it or not, and that's one of the reasons why I'm calling you, only just today had it moved to the next to the last process where it's moved to a what they call submitting for an approval. So they submit it to a board, and the board says, okay, this is a good rating.
You're 2 years into this process?
That's correct, sir. Yes, and a lot of us are longer, depending on what has to be evaluated. The use of a limb, or how much PTSD you have, or whatever it might be. That has to be rated, and that's what all these men and women that are running around the VA, they each have a rating, and they took years and years to get that rating.
Mark, can you hold with me for a few minutes?
Absolutely.
All right, I want to talk about this. There's a lot of talk about the VA and the system and how problematic. I think we need to hear from some of these people who are going through this, because can you imagine if this was your son?
Contrary to popular belief, no one owes you anything. Except more Michael Berry show, of course.
Sergeant Mark in Corpus Christi, let's go through. Talk to me like I'm 6, because I don't know this process. I've not worked through it. You came back from Afghanistan?
Iraq, sir. I was in the initial invasion.
All right. So you came back from Iraq in what year?
2003. Initial invasion. I was over there 6 months with the 1st Marine Division, 11th Marines Artillery. We blew up everything that we saw, and then we came home like Marines do.
So you returned to Corpus Christi?
Actually, sir, I was out in California when I came back. We came back with 1st Marine Division on the Bonham Richard and the USS Boxer, landed on the Camp Pendleton Red Beach there, and actually I got this job after applying for it out here in Texas, and because I want to fix birds and put them back into the fleet so they can bring my brothers home. I'm out now. Got honorable discharge 2005. I was 2005. So I've been in and around the system for quite some time, and I want you to understand how it works, Michael. I really do, and that's why I called you. All right.
All right. So you came home to Corpus Christi in what year?
I moved. I got my honorable discharge in California. All right. And then I moved here to Corpus in 2011, actually.
Okay.
So,
were you getting adequate medical care prior to that point?
I have to tell you, Michael, the medical care, that's where the debate is right now. But I think, and I get right now great medical care. I have got adequate medical care that I have to wait months and months for appointments for. That is true. Once I actually get to the appointment, it's great. For example, right now, being out here in the boondocks, I go up to San Antonio, which is the South Texas, basically out here, because I can't get to Houston. They make me go up to San Antonio to get seen. All right? But they have a sharing hospital up there with UT. University of Texas sharing hospital up there with the VA hospital. It's state-of-the-art, Michael, I got to tell you. So producer Kenny, when he went down to Houston, I'm sure he found some great, stellar medical care. It's the process that you have to go through, Michael, in order to just get there. that is the problem. And the reason I called you is, well, I keep saying the reason I called you, to get back to the rating process, okay? For these men and women, these soldiers, in order to just get the medical care, they have to first be rated, okay? And that means that they say, you know what, this knee, this arthritis, or this spine that has been degenerative because I've been humping this pack out for forever. You know what, it's really bothering me. Or the Agent Orange from Vietnam. Hey, you know what, I think I should go in there. Or for a lot of my brothers recently, it's, hey, you know, I've got this recurrent bronchitis from the burn pits in Iraq, and that's an issue now too, just like they've discovered the Agent Orange. So they approach the system and say, hey, I have this problem. That's when the clock starts ticking, Michael. And you have to first you get seen by the doctor at the VA. Then they send you out for an independent check from a civilian doctor that's not even connected to the system at all. Then they send you to a thing called compensation and pension, or C&P examination. Here in they have a separate one in Houston. There's one out here in San Antonio that vets go to, where a civilian that they pay will look at your condition and make a decision on it. And then they submit all the stuff to the Houston regional office. And that's where the backlog exists, where veterans are waiting 2 and 3 years to actually get a rating, a percentage. Well, you're 20% disabled, or you're 30% disabled, or whatever.
Mark,
okay?
Mark, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Are these physical and mental ratings?
That's correct, sir. The C&P, or compensation and pension examinations, have a mental as well as a physical examination. They have doctors there. There's the social workers as well. I think a social workers is one that I saw. And then they also have, civilian medical doctors that will actually look at the particular condition that you're wanting to claim and make, say, this is what I see. And then they say, yes, this happened because this person humped a pack for 10 years, or this person jumped out of a plane and shattered his kneecap. Yes, this happened in the service. Write it down, put it in a package. That package goes back to the Houston regional office, where there are stacks, Michael, and stacks of veterans who are waiting. And that is where the waiting is occurring. And that is why my brothers and sisters are taking their lives, is because there's not enough people there to make decisions on these ratings. And so they can't even come to the hospital, Michael. Okay? They can't, because they don't have a rating, right? So essentially it doesn't exist unless there is a judgment or rating at these regional offices that are way backed up. And everyone knows it. And they have these lawyers and people who come in and they say, well, we're going to help you. We're going to help you. They have these events called Beat the Backlog. Well, we're going to beat the backlog. They have these veteran services organizations, or VSOs, that are stationed around the...
Mark, I'm up against a break. We'll talk more.
He can explain it to you, but he can't understand it for you. This is the Michael Berry Show.
Here is Michelle Obama talking to a graduating class of college students about how they ought to be worried about whether their pawpaw uses the right terms, because, he's old. And it's important that the old man who has paid your bills and your parents' bills from a different generation, it's important that you scold him. It's important that you show him how much smarter you are than him. But you don't need to be worried about the people you went to high school with who are coming home from a war and can't get adequate medical care, including mental health care. You don't need to worry about them. That's not the subject of Michelle Obama's speech.
And that's really my challenge to all of you today. as you go forth, when you encounter folks who still hold the old prejudices because they've only been around folks like themselves, when you meet folks who think they know all the answers because they've never heard any other viewpoints, it's up to you to help them see things differently. Maybe that starts simply in your own family. And when Grandpa tells that off-colored joke at Thanksgiving, or you got...
Yep. That's what Michelle Obama wants to bring to the attention of college students graduating from college. That if your pawpaw doesn't sufficiently like LeBron James or Trayvon Martin, you need to scold him and tell him that you're smarter than he is. That's going to fix our country. She doesn't bother to say that you ought to care or emote for your classmate who didn't go to college, maybe couldn't afford it, maybe felt pangs of patriotism for a country long gone, and he signed up and gave up everything he owned. He didn't haul his goodies to college. He didn't drive his car to college. He didn't get to sex all the girls down the hall over the last 4, 5, 6 years. He had his hair shaved off and everything he owned stripped of him. And he's been put through hell and back and served in the desert sand and watched his buddies killed while you were at the college football game. But Michelle Obama doesn't say that you should remember your high school classmate who's now coming home from war, because she doesn't give up about him. She's worried about whether you love black people, because that is what gets her all excited. Whether you care enough about black people, whether you are socially concerned that your pawpaw doesn't like LeBron James or Trayvon Martin or her husband. That is what worries Michelle Obama. Not the fact that young people are coming home and killing themselves because they can't even get in to be rated by the VA so that the proper care protocol, proper care diagnosis can be made. That's not the subject of her speech. Of course not. That's not what she hopes to prick the conscience of college students over. Hey, you little arrogant farts. Hey, you've had it good. Just hope you remember your peers with whom you went to high school. When you were standing at the locker in the high school hall, the kid next to you went off to a war zone, and some of them didn't come home. And some of them came home but can't stand up without the aid of prosthetic limbs. And some of them can't live in a house because the walls are closing in on them. And some of them can't see anymore. And some of them had their bodies shredded. And as young men in their 20s, they're going to have to figure out how to put their lives back together. And they're struggling. And the very government my husband is supposed to be leading is crapping on them. But I want to make sure your pawpaw doesn't use any outdated terms. I want to make sure he watches BET sufficiently and listens to urban radio often enough and occasionally does a fist bump. That is what Michelle Obama cares about. That is what she thinks college students need to hear about. And that is what we're sending our college students, our children, to college to learn, is that crap there. She went to Princeton University on a minority scholarship. She spent her whole time there talking about how black people are not loved by white people, and this country elected her no-good husband president twice. He's had the highest honor in the land for 8 years. And what does she use the bully pulpit of the first lady position for? To tell white people to go home and lecture your grandfather who served in World War II? Go home and lecture your veteran grandfather who served in Vietnam and came home and can't get health care. Lecture him about race. But don't worry that your classmate came home missing an arm and a leg. That's who these people are. Call me a racist. I don't care. They are despicable heathens. Michael.